Kevin Costner ruined Yellowstone. Or is that just what the fandom would like to think? John Dutton was the star of the show, even when he'd infuriate fans with his rigid ways. The show was centered around two things: the Dutton family patriarch and the Montana Ranch. Everything else, from interpersonal conflicts to land grabbing, came as an afterthought. You could say that the show relied on Kevin Costner to stick around, at least through the finale. But the Hollywood legend had other plans when he walked off the set of Yellowstone ahead of Season 5's Part 2 and hung up his hat for good. This sent the writing table into overdrive to come up with an ending. A great one, actually, and one that made sense of John Dutton's exit. Was this the way Sheridan had envisioned his epic Western coming to a close? Probably not, but fans believe he'll find a way to make the best of an awful situation. Still, we have to ask, how did the series creator plan on ending Yellowstone? Setting the stage for the perfect Western. Name a better modern-day Western than Yellowstone. We'll wait. We might just be waiting for an entire lifetime because, let's face facts, Yellowstone was endgame. And yes, this bold statement comes despite the fact that Sheridanverse is ever-expanding and the series creator is on track to introduce a spin-off in 2025, The Madison. That's a pretty tall order for a show, by the way, making it into one of the best we've seen in a long time. Still, if anyone could do it, it'd be Taylor Sheridan. In fact, Paramount's been so impressed with Sheridan and his chops that in 2021, they signed a multi-million-dollar deal with the guy to produce more spin-offs, limited series, or whatever he wanted to. No one was saying no to a project with Taylor Sheridan's name slapped on it. Well, no one except Kevin Costner, that is. However, to better understand how the show was supposed to end, we have to go back to the beginning. No, we're not talking about the show's beginning from Season 1 in 2018. We're talking about where Sheridan got the idea from, his initial plans for Yellowstone, and all the changes he's made along the way. This takes us back to 2013 when Sheridan was this close to retiring from acting. He's only semi-retired now, by the way, only taking up minor roles in his own productions. Anyway, after a career in acting, Sheridan decided it was time to start working on screenplays. Since the actor had relocated to Texas during his acting career, he got the idea for a Western from, well, looking out his window. Sheridan spent much of his time in rural Texas or rural Wyoming and decided the world needed a modern-day Western. This was what inspired the idea for Yellowstone, centered around the largest ranch in the United States, located in Montana. From 2013 through 2017, Sheridan tried to pitch the idea to several production houses. Initially, he'd had his heart set on making Yellowstone a movie and his sights set on HBO. In his own words, he wanted to create a Godfather-esque Western. Sheridan eventually got in contact with HBO, who, according to the series creator, had a lukewarm reception to the idea. They placed a few stipulations ahead of him, one of which was to get none other than Robert Redford on board. This was a big deal, and Sheridan really wanted to see his passion project go through. Despite nearing the end of his acting career himself, Redford agreed to taking on the role of John Dutton. That should have settled everything, right? Wrong, because HBO still wasn't accepting of the idea, claiming that they didn't want Robert Redford. They just wanted someone who was like the guy. So yeah, the HBO plan didn't pan out. The journey from HBO to Paramount was an unexpected one. One that worked well in the end, sure, but no one really saw it coming. You see, Sheridan's script wasn't necessarily in line with what Paramount was used to. Still, the two decided to gamble on one another, and in 2017, Paramount announced it'd be running its first scripted television series. Kevin Costner had already been contacted to star as the lead, and he readily accepted. Pivoting to Costner, the star initially agreed to what Sheridan had initially pitched, and that was a movie. According to Costner, he was thrilled to be part of an action-packed Western and loved the idea of it being a movie. If you know the guy, you'll know that there are few things in life he likes more than a good old Western and a long movie. So when Sheridan switched plans and announced Yellowstone would be a television series, Costner was a little taken aback, but agreed nonetheless. That's how much he loved the script. Initially, Costner was supposed to star in one season, and initially the show was supposed to run for one season. That is, Yellowstone was planned as a 10-episode limited series. The audience's reception to those first few episodes was what got everyone thinking about expanding the universe. Costner signed on for a couple of more seasons, and it was all smooth sailing. Until it wasn't, obviously. Kelly Reilly says this was always part of the plan. Costner eventually decided 5 seasons was 5 too many and left the set of Yellowstone. The reason or reasons for his exit are still up for debate, but it's been widely believed that he left Yellowstone to work on Horizon. At the end of the day, however, there was no love lost between him and Sheridan. Why? You'd think that the series creator would be out for blood after Costner derailed everything. But that's not the case. In fact, Costner's former co-star and on-screen daughter, Kelly Reilly, who plays Beth Dutton, confirmed that this was always part of the plan. No, Costner's impromptu exit might not have been part of the plan, but John Dutton's limited appearance in the finale was. According to Kelly, she'd had a conversation with Sheridan during season 1, asking him how he planned on ending the series. The series creator confirmed the ending, and Kelly claimed that it's largely been kept intact despite Costner walking out. Now, we know that Kelly didn't have to save face. If she's claiming that this was always what was supposed to happen, then we believe her. However, did it really not derail anything at all? Like, not one little thing? So, Kevin Costner wanted to walk away from Yellowstone. Sheridan and Paramount tried to get him to stay. They were willing to compromise on several fronts with the guy, but talks fell through when Costner wanted more creative control over John Dutton. That was when Sheridan and Paramount decided maybe it was best to cut their losses and move on. To be fair, Costner did try to come back. In 2023, he revealed that he had his people reach out to Paramount, asking if the star could somehow be part of the finale. According to Costner, he wanted to give John the ending he deserved. However, Paramount said there was no need. Sheridan had already written the script for the ending, one where John wasn't the central figure, and filming had already begun. Having Costner back would have resulted in another overhaul of everything they'd achieved. Paramount didn't have the budget for it, including Costner's salary, and Sheridan didn't have the time. You have to remember here that concurrent to the Yellowstone finale, Sheridan was working on the Madison. Of course, Kevin's exit from the series led to some changes and maybe some resentment. However, Kelly's claims that the show is still on track for the ending it was always supposed to have added another layer to the story. That, plus a director for Season 5's second half, has confirmed that John Dutton will be a prominent character in the finale, despite the actor himself not being there. Wait, what? Okay, so based on the trailer for the finale, we know that Sheridan didn't go with the usual Hollywood route, which would have been to write out the character completely, something that fans were initially worried about. We've seen it happen way too many times, and it kills a hit series. In this case, maybe because Kelly had already called it, Sheridan didn't go that route. If anything, the finale's trailer is one long epilogue by John himself. He's talking to Rip, and the two of them look over at the Yellowstone Ranch. Yes, the trailer features every main character in the series and the conflicts they're embroiled in, compared to whatever they've got going on. John's epilogue seems calmer. Maybe that's what Kelly meant by the ending the show was always destined to have. Sheridan probably didn't want to hold a petty grudge over Kevin Costner's head, especially if it meant hurting Yellowstone. Or maybe he didn't have to. Sure, Kevin's exit might have led to an earlier finale than anticipated, but not one that wasn't inevitable. That's to suggest that Kelly was right all along. Maybe the real finale involved less of the patriarch and more of the Dutton kids. That explains where we left off in Season 5's first half as well, with Beth and Jamie declaring war on one another. In hindsight, everyone in the fandom had a pretty good idea that the finale would focus more on the next generation of Duttons, with John passing the torch. The question still remains though, who? Taylor Sheridan ruined the finale. Here's something you don't get to hear about often. The series creator himself is responsible for a spoiler. To give you guys some context, everyone on the sets of Yellowstone got the full and finished script on day 1 of filming for the finale. This means that everyone knew how the show was going to end. There's a sort of fear that comes with knowing the ending, and that's the fear of slipping up. It might be a sly interviewer or a post on social media with props and scripts in the background. Spoilers are common, but the series creator giving away the ending definitely isn't. So, what happened? How did Taylor Sheridan ruin his own ending? Okay, so the word on the block is that Yellowstone isn't actually ending with Season 5. This news hasn't been officially confirmed as of yet, with negotiations between the main cast and the network still ongoing. We don't know a ton about Season 6, but we do know a few details. For example, we know that Sheridan's been pitching the idea of a 6th season for a hot minute now, and Paramount's interested in the idea too. We also know that a number of castmates have signed up to work on a 6th season, should it ever happen. But here's where Taylor messed up. Instead of keeping the news under wraps or letting the rumors stay that way, he confirmed that he'd been thinking about a 6th season. He also confirmed that the 6th season would focus on Beth and Rip. That's where he messed up. You see, the ending of Part 1 had many fans believe that between Jamie and Beth, only one would survive. Yellowstone's not the sort of show that shies away from bloodshed and gore, even when it comes to killing off a main character. That's why confirming that a 6th season would focus on Beth and Rip was the wrong move. For many fans, this piece of information confirmed the ending, or at least a part of it. A major part, to be fair. That is, Jamie's not going to make it out alive. Beth's probably the one who inherits the ranch, or at least the one who defeats Jamie and gets to decide what to do with it. Beth's taking charge, and Jamie's out of the picture for good. Gee, thanks, Sheridan. Theories from the Yellowstone subreddit. Leave it to the good people of Reddit to come up with fan theories that will blow your mind. In the Yellowstone subreddit, one of many actually, fans have been pouring in their theories, and some of them make complete sense. To preface this, Cole Hauser told Entertainment Tonight that he's read some of the fan theories and was shocked at how accurate a few of them were. This means that of the gazillion or something fan theories out there, there's one that hits the nail right on the head. But which one is it? Is it the ending that Taylor Sheridan had always planned? Let's take things back to Season 1 for a minute. So we all know that John had a health scare, and that was when, maybe one of a few times, he had a real heart-to-heart with his kids. Beth being his undisputed favorite, John told her that he'd always envisioned the Yellowstone Ranch staying within the family, and his kids staying a part of its legacy. That sets the groundwork for the finale, according to several fans. However, instead of the typical route wherein the Dutton kids get together, work out a deal, and even cut Jamie some slack, Yellowstone will have a twist. Fans believe that John's wishes will be honored, but a premonition from 1883 will also play through. So you know how Taylor has a lot of spin-off series planned for Yellowstone, right? Some of them are prequels like 1883 and 1923, and some of them are sequels like the anticipated 4 Sixes. Well, there was a dialogue in 1883 that fans are bringing up in talks about the Yellowstone finale. Basically, the native tribes tell the Duttons that the ranch will stay with them for 7 generations before it's given back. 7 generations later, and we have Tate Dutton, Casey and Monica's son, who's as Dutton as he is native. By having Tate take over the ranch, Sheridan would be able to bring all of his series under the Yellowstone banner to a full circle. Then he'll be able to pick up where the show left off in 4 Sixes, the sequel. That's the general idea, but fans are still speculating on how everything's going to go down. There are a few ideas for this. Some fans believe that the show will end with John Dutton riding off into the sunset with the rest of the characters figuring out a way to get him back, and fighting a war against anyone who's trying to take over Yellowstone while they're at it. Then again, some people believe that John's cancer is back and he's preparing to leave the ranch in someone else's hand. That is, make it someone else's problem. There's also the possibility that he's going to write out the conditions of what to do with the ranch in his will. That way, the infighting would be more or less pointless. Speaking of his will, fans believe that he'll give Tate everything, and Thomas Rainwater would finally be able to take back what's rightfully been theirs for years. However, the Dutton family would have some stipulations. This would include giving the Dutton family a permanent home on the ranch, projects that the Dutton kids can oversee, and under no circumstances are the Rainwaters permitted to build a casino on the ranch or commercialize it in any way whatsoever. It's worth noting, though, that some fans were still holding on to hope that maybe Jamie would get a happy ending. You have to remember here that Jamie Dutton is probably a character who's gotten a ton of empathy from the fandom. Sure, he might be the villain in the finale, but he's been the poor bloke who's had to deal with an adoptive family that loathed him from the very beginning. If anyone deserves a happy ending, it's Jamie. But we know that's asking for too much. Wait, if Casey's family gets the ranch, What's going to happen to Beth and Rip? How Yellowstone will pass the torch to 4 Sixes. 4 Sixes has been in the works for a long time now, arguably since Season 4 of the parent series. Here's what we know. The 4 Sixes Ranch is an actual ranch that Sheridan bought back in 2021. 1. He's a developer on top of being an actor and a series creator. 2. The 4 Sixes Ranch serves as the perfect backdrop for any spin-offs or limited series he comes up. So he came up with 4 Sixes. But who's starring in the series? While we don't know for sure just yet if Beth and Rip will or won't be a part of the series, we can confirm the re-entry of a fan favorite from the parent series, Jimmy. For those of you who might have forgotten, Jimmy was the ranch hand Rip took under his wing. Jimmy used to be a low-life drug dealer who found himself in heaps of trouble when he owed money to some dangerous people. That's when his granddad called in an old favor to John and asked him to hire Jimmy. The journey from being a drug dealer to a ranch hand wasn't easy, but Jamie eventually got the hang of it and got pretty good at it too. Eventually, he started venturing outside of simple cattle farming and learned that he was a real natural at the rodeo. This wasn't the best idea for John, who believed Jimmy was way in over his head. And he was right. Jimmy fell more times than he could stand up. Eventually, John sent him to Texas where he would train at the 4 Sixes Ranch. Once again, Jimmy struggled in an unfamiliar location, but eventually found his place. He asked John if he could stay in Texas, and John agreed. Since then, Jimmy has found love and a life for himself at the 4 Sixes Ranch. Now, the character has been mentioned ever since his move, and so has the 4 Sixes Ranch. In fact, Rip had a herd of cattle moved to Texas when the winter months hit to preserve the wild stock. We also know that Jimmy will be seen again in the finale after Jeffrey White, the actor who played him, posted a selfie with the caption, "We're back!" Some fans believed he was talking about 4 Sixes, but that project hasn't even gotten off the ground yet. Will the Madison double as Season 6? It wouldn't have been Sheridanverse without just some ambiguities. Right now, the question that's brewing in the minds of fans everywhere is, huh? To elaborate, we know that Season 6 is being discussed, and we know that 4 Sixes has been greenlit. On the other hand, we also know that filming for the Madison hasn't only begun, but it's wrapped up and ready for release. 3 projects simultaneously, yet the one that's been the least hyped so far is what's being released in 2025. What's going on? To be fair, the Madison had been greenlit for a long time now, just under a different name. Think back to 2023 when Matthew McConaughey was being scouted for a cowboy role in Sheridanverse. That's right, the Madison was originally 2024. However, after Matthew pulled out from the project and Kelly and Cole agreed to stay on for longer, Sheridan changed things around. Sure, it made it all a bit confusing, but that's what you have us for. 2024 was slated as a continuation of Yellowstone with Matthew McConaughey. The fact that Sheridan had a big actor on board for a project meant that 4 Sixes became collateral damage. To put it rather bluntly, Paramount considered dropping 4 Sixes in favor of 2024 since they'd basically served the same purpose, a modern-day continuation of the Yellowstone saga. The only way 4 Sixes would have gone on now would have been if Sheridan wanted to use the project as Season 6 of Yellowstone. Matthew McConaughey would be a central character for another character, and the Dutton family would move to the 4 Sixes Ranch. There'd be crossovers, but they'd largely stay separated. This was one way to go. However, with Matthew pulling out from the project, Sheridan decided to go ahead with another spin-off, The Madison. This, however, would not serve as a continuation of Yellowstone. Yes, the show is focused on a family's move from the Big Apple to Madison Valley, and yes, ranches and cattle are involved, but no, it's not the Montana ranch we've come to know and love. Think of Madison as Tulsa King, a member of Sheridanverse, but in no way linked to Yellowstone. Now that that's cleared up, let's talk about Season 6 of Yellowstone versus 4 Sixes. Let's be real, there's a high chance that there'd be either one or the other, but not both. We know that Season 6 would have focused more on Beth and Rip, and we know that the original ending, we think that the original ending would have seen Tate take over the ranch. This would mean that Beth and Rip are ready to start anew elsewhere. But they can't just walk away from their roots. Rip certainly can't. He'll pitch that the two of them find a way to relocate to another ranch, And wouldn't you know it, he's already been to the 4-6's ranch anyway. So in this way, Season 6 would focus on Rip and Beth while also serving as 4-6's. But it's either we get Season 6 in the form of a new Yellowstone series or have 4-6's pick up where Yellowstone left off. Still technically Season 6, but would be written as Season 1 of 4-6's. Is it confusing? You bet it is. But that's the price the fandom has to pay. Yellowstone's been plagued by one mystery after another, everything that's been set into motion since the day Kevin Costner walked away. Apparently, Sheridan wanted to continue the series for 7 seasons. That would have meant Kevin would have had to agree to 2 more seasons. Given how he had a passion project of his own to chase, yes, we're talking about Horizon, he wouldn't have agreed anyway. Maybe his exit was sudden, but it didn't necessarily come out of the blue. And that's why fans should take a deep breath. Sheridan had already anticipated the situation, and Kevin's exit didn't change the essence of the show. Also, rest assured, Sheridan is determined to give fans the Yellowstone finale that they deserve. It's the least that they deserve after the mess from 2022. Yellowstone fans tend to get 1 season a year. That's the unspoken agreement they've made with Sheridan and Paramount. However, with the lead actor's exit and then the writer's strikes, things were slowed down a bit. The finale is now coming to us after a 2-year wait, and fans are hoping it's worth it. Ian Bowen from the show can clear these doubts. He says the finale is definitely worth it. If you want to take his word for it, then the finale is actually the best finale in television history since, well, ever. We'll have to wait and watch for ourselves, but it'd be a pretty good bet that Sheridan has something amazing in store for us. Whether it's the ending he always planned or one he modified along the way, rest assured, Yellowstone's ending with a bang like none other. Oh, and to make the deal sweeter, there's still so much more to come from the brilliant mind of the series creator. Stay tuned for that too. What are your theories for the finale? Let us know in the comments. Be sure to give this video a thumbs up and subscribe for more. We'll see you in the next one. Bye for now.